I should take a shower.
Do you need help?
No, I'm just getting him in focus.
You got lots of battery power?
I got unlimited power.
Yeah.
This is a power outage. Damn it.
All right, everyone. This is like literally one of the last talks. There's like one more after this by Sebastian because of a little bit of a technical hiccup, but I would like to welcome Geoff Burke to talk about data protection. Welcome, Geoff. Why don't you introduce your session? Let's give him a round.
So hi everybody, my name is Geoff Burke. I'm a senior data protection architect at Whipcord Edge, which is a local Canadian service provider. I've been working in IT for about 20 years and specifically in data protection for around 13 years. Kubernetes I've been doing for about 3 years and now more and more doing Kubernetes data protection, hence my talk. Now they told us to put our LinkedIn on the front page, so I did, and I realized it's incredibly difficult to remember, so you might want to...
remove the numbers, you know.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
there you go. You can see what a good social media expert I am. Okay. So, my talk today is about application-aware Kubernetes data protection. Okay, that's a big, long title, but it's an important title. And before I actually talk about that, I want to make a couple of things clear, some concepts that need to be reinforced, because just recently had someone say something like, well, no, we don't have to back up Kubernetes, do we? I mean, it's self-healing, right? Or, well, no, they're stateless containers, right? You don't need to back them up. So, no, that's not true. First important point, we have to back up our Kubernetes applications. Very important. The same threats that are present with traditional workloads, so virtualization, physical workloads, are also present with Kubernetes. So ransomware, data centers explode, what else can go wrong? Newbies, so that's even worse in Kubernetes. How many of us are newbies? How many of us make horrible mistakes, configuration mess-ups that you can't fix? So what do? You restore it. So it's very important to remember we have to back it up. And we have, of course, persistent storage now in Kubernetes, and it's used quite often. Secondly, we should not use legacy software and legacy methods to back up Kubernetes. And what do I mean? When I first started playing Kubernetes, and when I graduated from Minikube, doing my first KubeADM cluster with little VMs, and I thought, you know what, I might want to back this up. What did? I leveraged virtualization software to back up the nodes. And I thought, that's wonderful, it works, right? And then someone wiser than myself said, well, Geoff, your little hello world deployment is probably going to restore about any problems. But if you have a big cluster with a Kube API server getting hit constantly, whatever, your virtualization servers backing up the nodes, your virtualization software backing up the nodes will probably get everything out of sync. And so that cluster will not work correctly. That's an important point. And there's another important point. What happens if I delete a complicated config map and I can't find the YAML file to recreate it? Do I really want to restore my entire cluster for one config map or a secret? No. So we don't want to use virtualization software or agents, anything of that nature. What do we want to use are what they call native backup applications. Okay? The reason being is that you want to leverage the tools in the platform you're using to perform your backup. Not just for efficiency, but because when it comes time to restore, restores don't always work. Okay? And to make the chances of things working, you want to use what was designed to work. An example of that is I used to do a lot of Azure VM backups, and I would use a physical agent. So an agent that used to use a little software, put on a physical machine, and so it would treat the virtual machine as a physical machine. It worked, it was clunky, but the minute Microsoft introduced Azure Snapshots, I immediately went to an appliance, so actually Veeam had an appliance, which allowed me to leverage Azure Snapshots. Faster, better, works well, restores work. That's the most important thing, okay? So those are three important things to remember before we even talk about application aware. Application aware. Okay, what does that mean? Your backup is aware of the application? Great. I'm aware of that truck coming, and I just say, oh, great, I'm aware. That's no good. So that wording is actually a little bit of a misconception. Application aware, but then being able to interact with that awareness. In other words, not just be aware that you have an application you back up, but be able to interact with it to prepare it to be properly backed up. Because if it's not properly backed up, the chances of restoring it are going to be worse. And I've been through all this too. So everything I'm talking about, I've actually lived through bad mistakes or laziness. So it can be quite painful. So application-aware backup, what is it? Well, okay, I talk often to a lot of former Windows admins, and people who have done Windows know about VSS, Volume Shadow Copy Service. What does it do? When the backup is taking place, the backup software through VSS, through these things called VSS writers, they're particularly made for applications, will tell it, okay, prepare yourself for backup. I'm going to take my snapshot or checkpoint, and then you can go back to what you're doing. Okay? So that's what it is in Windows, application-aware. And if you don't, so thinking VSS, if you don't use it, then as I always like to say, you're like roller coasters, because that's what happened to me once. I was in a new job, and I was only there for 3 weeks, and they had a massive Active Directory failure. Okay? And we restored it, and the restorer was happy. It said, restored, I'm great, I can go home, and Active Directory was totally not working. And I checked the backup, because the little check mark saying use VSS was not clicked. So I spent the whole night on the phone with Microsoft support. What about Linux? Well, it's the same thing. Okay? This problem is in all operating systems. And for Linux, we tend to leverage scripts, which will have application commands for your deployments. Databases, think, programs like freeze and thaw scripts, programs like MySQL dump, PG dump for Postgres. Now, some people say dump, well, that's an extra backup. That's not the point. The point is that the backup software higher up is telling the application to do something to be able to restore it. So it can be a thaw script, a freeze script, or it can just be a dump, okay, second backup, but when you restore, it will work. That's the most important thing. Okay, Kubernetes. And you hear this a lot. People say, well, but everything's different Kubernetes, right? I'm a vSphere administrator. My work says, no, everything's different there. It is, except when it comes to data protection. Again, the threats that are out there are the same. We have ransomware, disasters of all kinds, so it isn't different. And it comes to application aware, you also have to have your Kubernetes deployments ready for backup. That same SQL, MySQL that runs in a Linux VM, is running your Kubernetes the same way, okay? So the same challenges exist as in Linux as in the Windows world. And we need our applications to be in a state ready for backup. So these are the leitmotifs that I repeat over and over again. And the reason I do so is because I see so often with customers and really good IT people just either not knowing this or ignoring it, and then when it comes time to restore, they can't do so. Okay, so what do we need for AA? AA, application aware. The software that you leverage must be able to interact with your applications. And this is really important because there is software out there that says backup, it'll work, but it can't do this. And of course, they're not going to market that because they don't want to tell you that, your MySQL will take your DBA hours to restore it, to fix it after it's been backed up. Now, I'm going to do a demo today to show this, and I'm going to be using Kasten blueprints, which leverage an open source product called Canister, okay? And what these blueprints do is they allow you to inject commands into your workload in order to prepare your application for backup. And it's very simple. And if you want, you can go to Canister's GitHub page, and a lot of examples there. So you can actually take these examples and run them yourself if you want. The reason I'm using Kasten is because I still consider myself a newbie to some extent, and it's a little more complicated. Kasten makes it a bit simpler, for me at least, because there's a UI, and I'm going to show you how you can just push this stuff in there and it works. Okay, so what is a blueprint, Geoff? That blueprint, I have no idea what this is. Basically, it's just code. I'm going to show you an example. We go to it's a YAML file, and what you want to happen with blueprints is you don't want to write them. You want the person, or like to say the application owner, which I don't like that term because companies say that, and I say, okay, owner, great, where are my shares? Oh, no, not in that sense. You're the owner in the sense of working with it. So the person who is intimately acquainted with the backup application, not the backup application, your application. So they know what that application needs, what state it needs to be in to be properly backed up, okay? So you can do it for testing. I can grab some examples from GitHub or from the Kasten web page. But if it was production, I would go to the developer or the person who runs that daily. The person will have to fix it if it's not working after the restore and have them create the blueprint, okay? Okay, so in Kasten, why did I say this was easier? Because it's basically 3 steps. And I'll show you that in the demo. The first is you or someone who's the expert creates the blueprint YAML file. Okay, then you add the blueprint YAML file in the Kasten namespace. You can do it either through the CLI, so Kubehuddle, -f, and then your YAML file, and then -n Kasten IO, or you can do it actually in the UI, the GUI. And then the last step is simply to annotate your application and tell it, okay, use blueprints. And then when Kasten goes to do its backup, it'll see that annotation and click in that blueprint. It's as simple as that. Okay, so for my demo, the great thing about Kubernetes is you can do so much on a laptop. They said, do you need the Wi-Fi? I go, no, I don't need it. It's all here. On a Windows laptop, no less. 20 years ago, I was like, that's impossible. They hate each other. I'm leveraging Windows subsystem for Linux with Ubuntu. I have Rancher Desktop, which has K3s as its distribution. You can actually disable that and use Kind if you want, using the Moby Docker driver. I'm using MongoDB as a little database. I've got great sample data for my test, which you want to use. A fellow at mcampo2 has a whole group of sample databases you can just import. And then I'm going to use MongoDB Compass, which is a nice little GUI program on Windows to connect to that database. I'm going to go in there and mess things up for fun, and then I'll restore it afterwards, leveraging Kasten blueprints. Okay, there's my thank you, so that's the end of that, and now we'll go to the demo. So, first of all, I'll show you what I've got running here. If I can find my, it turns on, yes, wait a second. On. Okay, so what do I have, basically? I have a bunch of namespaces, and you'll see I've got my MongoDB app consistent running. Yep. Oh, my goodness. One second. I'll need technical support. There we go. I was probably going too fast. That's what always happens, right? The computer's too slow for me. That should kill the PowerPoint. Oh, gosh. You need to hire me now. Excellent. Okay, so I've got a MongoDB app consistent namespace, which has my deployment. And in that deployment, I have a persistent volume claim, not very big. That's where the databases are. So it's 8 gigs. I have my Kasten namespace, where I have my Kasten setup working, hopefully. Oops. Yes. Okay. And this is all locally on the laptop. So, first and foremost, I will show you the Kasten GUI and show you what I've done beforehand. Now, this is not a demo on how to set up Kasten or perhaps set up policies, but it's very simple to do. You go to unmanaged here, and then create policy, and go next, 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 basically. So I've already done that for time purposes. And what I have here, if you go to settings, is you will see these blueprints on the left-hand side. And you can either add the blueprint by pressing this Add Blueprint button. You get a nice little box here, and if you really enjoy doing that, you just type the whole thing out yourself, but I'll show it to you, maybe you won't want to do that. You can cut and paste it. And to show you a blueprint, let's take the one I'm going to leverage, and this is Mongo hooks. So I'll press Edit, and there it is, okay? Canister blueprint, you can see it's doing all sorts of stuff. Basically, it's running a command. In this case, it's going to lock the database and unlock it after the backup, so you can find that somewhere there with fsync unlock and lock. But it's as simple as that. You can add it that way, or you can add it through the command line. And then the third step that I talked about was you have to make sure that Kasten knows that you want your deployment to leverage that blueprint. Okay? So let's check out our deployment. So we're going to describe it. And Mongo. Let's go up to the annotations, and what you will see here, the second one in the annotations, canister.kasten.io blueprint Mongo hooks. So when Kasten goes to that back, if that wasn't there, Kasten would just do like a crash consistent. It would do the backup snapshot, and that would be it. What's going to happen when it runs, it's going to see that blueprint, and it's going to go, oh, I need to leverage the Kasten blueprint, which it will. And just to show you that, if I go back to the backup that I did previously, hopefully it was successful. Oh, that was the store I tested. I always test just in case. But here's the backup. And if we look at this section here, the actual backup section, and we go over here, we can see the artifacts that backed up. So it's going to show us all the things that backed up in that deployment, the secrets, config maps. And in this list, what you will see is this blueprint right there. Okay, so that's the Mongo hooks. And if there was any, so for instance, if I had added the MySQL blueprint to that, this would have failed gloriously, be a big red mark everywhere, so I would have known about it. And here you can actually press this, and it'll actually show it to you if you enjoy reading this kind of thing. But that is the blueprint there. Okay, so that was backed up, the backup was successful. In this case, I'm sending to an S3, also on my laptop, Minayo. And what we're going to do now is destroy our database or mess it up, have some fun. So I'm leveraging this wonderful program called MongoDB Compass on the Windows end. And I created first a database called Trades, which I thought was really boring. It's just a bunch of like numbers and stuff. Now, that's not fun to mess up. So I created the Geoff database. And in there, it's the Airbnb kind of directory, right? So you can really have fun with this. So let's go in and mess this database up. Ideally, what you would have shown in a demo like this would be like massive amount of transactions taking place and then take your backup without the hooks and the integrity's gone off the database. That's not really viable to do on a laptop, so I can pretend, right? So let's pretend, let's create some corruption. Let's mess up the URL. So I'll just go like this, and then I'll do something like this, okay? Great. So anyone tries to go to that URL, they'll go nowhere. And then, let's pretend someone's gotten in there, it's the competition, they want to be mean, and let's say it says description, fantastic duplex apartment with 3 bedrooms. Okay, let's change that to 3 bedbugs. Right, so the potential person will be not very enthusiastic. Although 3, you probably kill 3 bedbugs, I guess. Get away with it. So we'll save that, update it. And let's totally remove this one, which is the lovely 1-bedroom sofa, whatever. Let's just remove this one. Oh, Horto flat with small garden. So remember that. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. Also update that. And they are now gone. Okay, so we've got some corruption, we've got some defacing, a nice little blend of evil. And so, obviously I don't like that, I want to restore it. Now, let's pretend our database is working constantly, there's people with Airbnb all the time, and so you need to take a backup, and you don't want to mess up the rest of it, it's already got enough problems. So what we'll do is we'll go up to here to applications, it's compliant, thank goodness, which means it's worked, and there it is, and here are my restore points. Okay, I have 20 of them, I've done my due diligence, I've got tons of restore points, and I'll press this one. And now here you'll see 2. One's just a local snapshot, okay? So snapshots aren't backups, but I could theoretically restore from that. But I mean, I'm purposely showing you my restore from my Minayo, which I prove is working. Where is it? There it is. It's just a local Minayo I set up, and it thinks that it's a Minayo somewhere else. All right, so let's press it. It's as simple as pressing restore. I'm going to press that, and like all good system administrators, we're going to get on our knees and pray that it works. Because I've been in these situations when it doesn't at 2 in the morning. Okay, so this will show us what's happening, and we'll wait for it. And meanwhile, I will close this program so that you'll see that I'm deploying any trickery. We'll wait for it to come back.
Jeff, I have a question. If you run the policy manually, would it show up that there were some items missing?
So if you mean if I backed up just normal crash consistent, no, it'll back up normal. But if you think about it, in Windows, same thing. If you haven't applied VSS, it's like that Active Directory. It's going to say, like in Veeam, it'll be green. Oh, great, successful backup, right? The problem will be that this is the big problem. It's the application. You don't know about the application, right? So you can either restore, do test restores and whatnot, but it was a big problem, especially with databases, so anything is active. Windows, for instance, you also use scripts, by the way. I forgot to say this. If you have QuickBooks, there is no VSS driver for QuickBooks, okay? QuickBooks is important, and that's salary and whatnot. So when I deal with customers, I say, you have QuickBooks? Yes. There's no VSS backup for it. No. So there's a program in there, it's like a dump for QuickBooks. I said, we can leverage that. There's a use script, use this QuickBooks dump, okay? All right, so it's successful, so let's hope. Everything's all right? No, we don't have to hope, we know it's going to work, right? Okay, so let me find my MongoDB. Thank you. Oh, my desktop isn't this. There it is. I put it somewhere I can find it. Okay. So it should have restored everything. It's this one here. Okay, yes, it's there. Now the moment of truth. So here's my Geoff that I tortured. And there we go. We've got our URL, that's fine. The bed bugs are gone. And is the Horto, yes, the Horto flat with small garden is also there. So it's worked. It's a database. There's been no integrity problems. Again, on a test environment like this probably worked anyways. But on a big environment, there's a big chance it wouldn't have. The more transactions taking place, the more things in RAM when the backup's taking place, the bigger chance there's gonna be a problem. So, anyways, are there any questions? That was a lot faster than I thought. That's Speedy Gonzalez. This was actually 35 minutes at home in the beer.
Jeff, in terms of the steps, the third one where you're actually applying, I believe it is the blueprint to the application, you went through the UI, or pardon me, you went through the CLI to do that. Is there a way to do that through the UI?
So through the CLI, it's very simple, Kubehuddle and then your YAML file. But if you want to do it in the UI, it's simple, but I wouldn't type it out. That's what I was saying, like because it's long. So you can copy and paste. So for instance, like here's add blueprint, right? So what I can do right now, for fun, is I can go into here and let me just see each of my YAMLs, and then I've got an extra one lying around. Let's see. Added that one.
Also, canisters, detail you said?
Yeah, yeah. There's all sorts of blueprints out there. Let's just cap this one. The problem will be this. So there's a blueprint. Oh, it's kind of big. Oh, this one's a big one, but I can try to copy it all. The problem is that for getting one from Canister, keep in mind that most of it will work, but you'll have to change it a bit if you're going to use it in Kasten, okay? Because they're going to be using, like, I think just Copia sending it right off to S3, whereas Kasten, okay, let's click this and try to add this. I think I've already added this one, but
It's just coded something else.
yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if it will here. Let's give it a try. Let's see. Validate, save. Already exists. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll delete the other one, just for fun of it. Let's go in. Actually, I can do it this way. Let's say okay. Delete and cast in, and then 3.
You can also do it on the UI.
Oh, minus F. Yeah, I think so, but let me just do this for fun.
Yeah.
I like doing this and showing the UIs. Wow, magic. Okay, so let's refresh. And which one it was now? Oh, well, it's gone. I can tell that. Okay, so it's gone. In fact, yes, you can't. No, you can't from the UI. Look at that. See, I was wondering about that. You can edit, you can't. That's why I did that. So if I go and paste this in here now, I'll validate, and it's there. And that validate's important, as you know, because YAML files are very. When I first heard about YAML, I thought it was some big woolly monster thing in the North Pole, and it turned out to be that way because any indentation problems and everything doesn't work. And I remember during the CKA exam, I had one indentation problem I couldn't find. I started to shake, and I just dropped that one. Didn't do that question. So there it is. It's been added. Blueprint's as simple as that. But no, you can't delete it from the UI. Now, for this to work with my application, I would then have to do the third step of annotating the deployment or the stateful set, whatever you've got there.
So sorry, the third step is that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Can you do that through the UI, or does it have to be CLI?
No, you can. So this thing I just did now, add blueprint. So you still have to put the YAML in here, right? So you have to paste it, or you can type it.
I'm talking about the annotation.
Oh, the annotation, you have to do that. You can only do that, as far as I know, unless they change it. They do have an automate system, I think, now, but it just came out last thing. Can't remember. It's like blueprints, binding or something. But normally you just do it in the CLI.
Okay.
And there is in the last version something came out. I think if you beforehand, I think that's more if you've got a bunch of blueprints and you want a bunch of deployments, I think you can do it that way. I can't remember, but I've always done it through UI.
Okay,
So
cool.
you got okay, we've got a few more minutes for questions, or I can show you something else fun on Kasten. Actually, it's only almost 30 minutes. That wasn't too bad, I think. It's 5 minutes. Well, thank you very much. And if you have any questions about application aware, or if anything wasn't clear because I was speaking through this, just come up and ask me. I'm great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a fantastic
Yeah.
talk, even though I was only here for 1 minute.
Well, you missed the best part.
But guess what? I have the recording of it.
Oh, no.
And guess what? You finished early, so you can go have a beer.
I quit drinking in 2020. Every time people say that, it's like, no, I'm leaving to say no.
Well, you don't have to drink.
No, I'm drinking. I'll another Pepsi Cola, that's why.
There you go. You have that to go to.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more talk, and it is with Sebastian. So, Sebastian, you don't need to start right away, but feel free to set up. We'll make sure all the AV is going well, and then I think one of the things that we're all looking forward to is maybe making it back to our hotel rooms so that we can sleep for maybe half an hour before we have to step out again for dinner and whether we're eating festivities or
If I step into the hotel, I won't get.
Oh, I can't see this.
If I go, I won't get. So I'll go direct.
My FOMO will take me out of my room is why I don't have
Really?
People will be like, hey, I'm going to dinner, and then someone else will like, "What's the same?" And then all of a sudden, everyone's like talking in the group or whatever group chat is going on. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
Some of the cool kids, huh?
Over there.
No,
Yeah.
I think I did.
Yeah, I know it's gonna go too fast. It's just like, at home, it's so much easier.
Great job.
It is. Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, you know, I just realized today it's the second time only, because KubeCon 2021, I was in front of people. And I said, shit, Geoff, everything else is